Welcome to another Wargame review from theplayers8.com. My name's Alexander, and today we're taking a look at A Wing and a Prayer, which is from Lock and Load Publishing. And this is I suppose you'd say it's a squadron-based game, and it's the daylight bombing raids over the Third Reich. So you've got northern France, the Netherlands, Belgium, northern Germany, and it's about, you have a squadron of B-17s or B-24s depending on which kind of campaign that you're doing, and you'll go through a series of cards and targets, and you'll go through a campaign, which is a similar, that's go through a campaign, you a bunch of different bombing missions, and you total up your victory points based on how much damage you did. So a familiar concept, at least, which a lot of these solitaire games are. This can be played as a two-player game, where one person plays the German defenses. But for me, this is primarily a solitaire game. I don't know if I would play this two players. Maybe there's some good to it, but the value for me in this is doing this solo. This is a game where, like I said, when we'll take a look at the board here, you have anywhere up to 12 planes, and that's your squadron, and you'll have them out in a formation on the formation board, and you'll have a kind of a strategic map where you'll move the generic formation token from box to box as point-to-point movement to get to your target. And then in each of those boxes you move through, you might have some random events, you might have heavy flak, you might get attacked by interceptors, German fighters, things like that. And you'll resolve those combats based on values on your bombers, and then the enemy planes have attack values and different bits and pieces. You'll do some stuff there, and then eventually you'll get to your target, and you'll have to do your target card. So today we're bombing Antwerp, for example. That has a value on it. You're trying to do X amount of damage to it, and you'll calculate how many attack rolls you get based on the state of your formation, how you actually get through all the defenses. If you're all in good shape, you'll get a good number of rolls. If you've got a ton of people damaged and planes were lost, or there's bad weather, all those things will change the CRT you roll, and what kind of happens and how much damage you're able or effectively can do to the target. If you destroy the target, you'll get max VPs possible for that card, and you can get yourself home. And then so you've got your mission VPs, and then that's going to contribute to your campaign VP track. And then you rinse and repeat, basically. And there's a series of different campaigns that are historical. You can do short campaigns, long campaigns. You could go through the whole of the war if you wanted to, the whole of the where the 8th Air Force and the 15th Air Force were kind of in play. So you start in 1942, go all the way to 1945. You could do all of that if you wanted to, and do a ton of different missions. Or you could just do the early war. 1942, you just play 5 missions worth, and that would be it. So you can tailor this game to whatever you want to do. You can just fly a single mission. It's a blast, and just do that. So that again, that's what I want from a solitaire game. Versatility, and this has that. I had a really good time with it. It's this really sweet spot between, you get good story out of it, but there's also some fun decision making with the route that you take. So for example, in B-29 Super Fortress, that's a game where it's very, very detailed. You get a lot of story out of it, but the actual traveling to and from it's a trek. Box 1, box 2, box 3, box 4. Here you actually have a printed map, and everything's named, and that, I know that's very what's the word? That's just me. I like to be able to see. I'm a visual kind of person. That helps me to envision the actual. It helps that I lived here, but they're flying over here. They're leaving from Southampton or thereabouts. They're flying over to Cherbourg, and they'll go south all the way to Saint Nazaire. that flight path that they take. I've been to a lot of those places. You know, I can visualize the fields of northern France that they're going over. You know, that small part of the English Channel. There's just a little bit more that I enjoy having a geographic map. I have really great time doing that. You know, and if you ever pull the mission card to go all the way to Dresden, boy, you've got to travel through the whole map and back again. And you can plan your routes to go different ways. You don't have to take the same route there and back to try and avoid different defenses and things like that. So there's a lot of cool stuff that comes from this. I have a really good time with the actual strategic map. The combat itself resolves. It's fairly simple. It's really, really nothing complex, which is what you want. So this is, like I said, you have a full formation. You can have up to 12 B-17s. And so trying to manage each one of those, you know, if you get hit by flak, you might have to roll for all 12 of them. And if it's really heavy flak, you might be rolling 3 attacks on each one. That's a lot of dice rolls to do for a lot of them. And that's part of the game, with a lot of dice chucking. But the resolution of that is very simple. It's quick. So you just blast through it. Okay, miss, hit, hit. What do they hit? It's dead. You know, it's damaged. Nothing happens. It goes very, very quickly once you've done it once. So the game plods along at a very good pace. It's not slow in any way. I didn't feel. You know, you get just the right amount of time at each point. You know, do an attack if you need to. You know, if there's flak, you do those. If not, you know, nothing happens. You roll a random event like you do in many of these games. You know, oh, nothing happens again. You move on. So that's really simple. You know, even if you get attacked by flak and there's fighters there as well, you can once you read the rules, and the rules are very easy to learn, you kind of just blow through that. And to me, the game it shines in that kind of higher level. So you're not micromanaging your dudes in each of the planes necessarily, and where they sit in each plane and shooting this particular gun. It's more abstracted. You just have your one plane. It has an attack value and a hull value kind of thing, and it has a maneuverability as well to try and evade things. But you know, it's, am I in good shape or am I damaged? That's basically your options. And as such, the storytelling for me comes from the overall shape of your formation. So, for example, we flew through Rotterdam, came under extremely heavy flak fire, and then it was, you chuck dice to get through all of the resolution of that, and at the end of all of that, then you take stock of the formation. You're like, oh my gosh, we're in bad shape, and that's where the story is. It's from point to point as you travel through the mission. The overall look and shape of your squadron as planes die off, the planes, you move up in the formation, and it just gets smaller and weaker, and then you get to your target, and then you've got less bombs to drop, so you'll do terribly. You lose victory points that way. I mean, it's really cool to see this kind of a game that's not on that micro level. That micro level is really cool. I have a great time playing Target for today. And I was worried this would be very similar. It's not. This is enough of a different game and a different feel to it that I'm definitely going to keep both in my collection. I have a great time playing this. So what we'll do is I'll take a second here. We'll have a look at the board and just kind of what it all looks like and what you can expect to see on the table. And then we'll come back with some final thoughts, okay? So let's take a look at the board. Sorry about the jaunty angle, but we kind of had to play with what's going on with the light and the reflections off of the plexiglass here, so we're just going to kind of deal with it. I'll bring everything into the shot that needs to. So as you can see, so we've got the main board here, which has it's got the strategic display where you'll be moving your formation counter, which has a tight formation side and a loose formation side, which is based on kind of what's happening to you. And this is what you'll move from box to box. You have an active mission. We'll do Antwerp here, 1942, which has great artwork on there, which is photos from the wall. So I'm trying to get to Antwerp, and I can choose how I get there. So what I did, I went through some open boxes, went through Rotterdam down into Antwerp. Now, you could go a circuitous route if you wanted to, if you felt you need to. That really gets important when you start having to bomb places that, like Stuttgart down here or Schweinfurt, where there's multiple ways to get there, and some of them are going to be extremely hairy, and some of them are going to, do different things based on how you choose to approach. So there's some really cool decision making for that, and I really like this. This provides a lot of the planning aspect, which I really like. You get to think a bit more about how are we going to conduct that operation, and something about planning air raids that I think is fun and enjoyable. That's something I really liked in Bomber Command from GMT. You have this secret planning that the Allies have to do, and they literally have to draw out their route, and they can't deviate from that. And I think that is so cool. And so this gives me a little bit of that feeling, which I enjoy. Something I can do as a solitaire player. It's not just moving up a track of box 1, box 2, box 3, box 4, which I know that's what Target for Today does, which is fine. That game offers a different thing, but I like this strategic, so I have a really good time with this. The missions, like I said, you'll have a deck based on which campaign you're doing. So this is just the 1942 deck, which I've prepared. So they all start with these blue kind of full strength cards. And what happens is, if we went to Antwerp and if we destroyed it, I think this would be discarded. But if you only damaged it, you didn't do full damage. So this has a 7 destruction value. If you get anything less than 7, but more than half of that, then what you would do is you would discard that and you would replace it. Let's see, obviously now I can't find it. Fantastic, it's not here. Well, obviously I've shot myself in the foot. But what you would do, it's somewhere, who knows. But you replace, so let's take here, full strength card. And then you dig out, this is the destroyed value, the damaged value. And as you can see, the values are a little bit less. It's easier to completely destroy it. The flak value goes down. So that's a neat kind of the campaign aspect, which I enjoyed with this game. Playing through a full campaign is going to reward you in that way. But I think there's a couple targets like Berlin, and I want to say Bremen's the same way, where they only have the full strength version. They always were decked out with full anti-aircraft because it was so crucial. So there's some really neat things there going on. But that's you draw a card. That's your mission, your target for today, one might say, and this is this kind of tells you what's going on. So you can take 9 planes in your formation. As you can see, I've got this is the formation card over here. It can take up to 12. You have a tail element here. You fill up numerically. You have a lead element and your number 1 crew. I put my best one there, as you can see. So we'll pull up here. This is my best crew that I took on the mission. He's a veteran, so it's got this gray border here. And it's the Peoria Bell. So once your crew kind of gets a name and becomes a veteran, you get a bit more extra flavor. Every one of my other crews on this mission is a green crew. It's just a generic, just says green crew. That being said, I'll pull up a couple more here. Each of the pictures here is different. So you do get some flavor from your generic green crews, right? Each one of them is unique, but they're just called green. And once they, if they get promoted, you would discard this and you would draw from the big pile of them. And obviously I don't have that up, but here's the other one. I got Big Time Operator as my other veteran crew. And then over here, for my campaign, I had one crack crew. And as you can see, they've got much better modifiers here. And this is Big Red. So your green crews, this one's got 0s across the board. And not every green crew is alike. So this is a green crew that's got 0s. This is my other green crew that was really bad and had negatives on everything. That was not good. But you get a lot of flavor in the game, and that's enjoyable. But the card, let's see, Antwerp. The card dictates how many planes you take in your formation. You set up your formation how you want. your lead bomber is quite important because if he's got pluses, these modifiers can add to, they can give you column shifts when you actually do your bombing run because they've done this before. So that's nice. It is important where you put each different thing in your formation. But what you'll do is, again, you'll move here. Because this is a blue empty box, basically you'll just roll a random event that is very unlikely to happen out here. The further out you get, the more likely it is that bad things are going to start happening. And then there's the red boxes here. You can see the map is covered in these red boxes, all these symbols. A lot of them have these flak cannons in them, and the flak, you obviously will resolve flak attacks here. And then the other symbols here, it's kind of hard to see. This is a sub-pen. This is an Air Force base. This train is kind of like it's a logistics resource. And then you've got Paris, which is a full-blown city as well. So that you've got some other iconography there. But really, it's planning your routes. I'm trying to go over as few of those red boxes because each one of those you roll if there's going to be a flank attack, and then you roll to see how heavy is the flak. And then each, so if you end up with moderate flak, which we did here in Rotterdam, you just cross-reference the table and you say, okay, that heavy flak, so the moderate flak has a value of 12. So we go to the CRT here and we go to attack factors. They had 12, and then you just go along the column here and you go this number of targets. So I had 9 planes in my formation. So you go 9 through versus 12 and 13. So 2. I'm going to roll 2 attacks against every single one of my planes. And that's kind of what I was talking about earlier. That, I got to roll 18 2d6. Oh, no. 18 d6. Yeah. So a flak attack is on a 6, it hits. So there you go. Obviously hit. So you just... If I got to roll 2 attacks, I roll 2d6 against each plane. For each 6, I roll... I gotta do it again. Well, that's not good. A lot of 6s there. You just roll for each one, and you just go down the line. So plane 1, great, nothing happens. Plane 2, nothing happens. Plane 3 gets hit. Boom. So then I roll again, or I would roll again, and then you look at... where's the flak resolution table? So you got these 2 different play charts. So this one's kind of got campaign rules, and then it had that CRT on there, which we'll look at again here in a second. And this one here has flak damage rolls. So we took a hit there, and then we rolled 2d6 on the flak damage table. So we rolled a 4, and here's the nice part, right? Rolled a 4, then we compare to bomber number 3 that got hit, and that plane has this green hull value of 4. And what you do is you subtract this from your die roll, and then you look at the flank damage table. Well, the good news is it was 2 or less, so nothing actually happens. What's bad is that damage roll ends up as a 10. Then you do 10 minus 4, it's 6. Then you go to heavy damage, rat eggs. So I roll again. The white die is a 3, so I actually continue. So I take damage, which means I'm going to flip my counter to the damage side. But I get to continue on. If I was already damaged, I'd be destroyed, or sometimes you've got to drop out and that plane's just got to go home. So you end up with a damaged plane back at home, he's got to get repaired, that's going to cost you campaign resources. So that's kind of the flak attacks there. You'll have enemy fighters. Those, let's see, what do I do with them? Enemy fighters. I got escorts. No, okay. The enemy fighters, again, it's an event. You'll get attacked by fighters. You roll X amount of dice. That's how many come out. Your campaign, so your mission card will tell you you have this number of escort fighters. The further out your mission goes, typically the fewer fighters you'll get because they just don't have the range. But the combat resolution for kind of the air combat reminds me a lot of RAF, The Battle of Britain by John Butterfield, one of my favorite games. So you end up having a few counters of enemy fighters, you roll to see if any of your escorts, because you have, so we had 8. Let's say we have 8 escorts. So I got 8 P-47s here, and I can roll a dice to see how many of those guys are being extra aggressive and are actively hunting the interceptors. Let me pull a couple of those out. What did I do? Obviously, I've lost them there. Fantastic. Oh, here they are. I'm just being blind. And again, counters are fantastic. So let's take a look. We've got a 109, a couple of 109s here. So those are going to be our interceptors. So I roll a die. Let's say one of my dudes, well, we'll say 2. These guys are the aggressive ones, if there are any. They fly up to the interceptor's box. And then we kind of roll off to see what happens. Who shoots first in these combats is determined by this little white number here. This is their kind of advantage. It's kind of their maneuverability, so to speak, and how good they are. So if you ended up with someone, so for example, one of my escorts is actually an ace, so he's got +2. So he would have a rating of 5 in his white value. That means he would, so if, for example, let's take him instead. Let's do that. So here, you've got a 5 total, and he's going up against this 3 for the B109. So he's going to shoot first. If it's the other way around, the 109 is going to shoot first. If it's a tie, ties go to the escorts. So that's a nice little saving grace. So you roll, shoot, try to shoot them down, do damage, and if not, you'll go through second waves and things. So you're trying to fend off these guys with your escorts. If they can't fend them off, they'll start pouring through, penetrating your formation. They'll randomly be assigned to various elements, to one of the lead element, high, low, or tail, and they'll attack different planes, which is going to damage, disrupt. You might break up your formation. You might go from a tight formation to a loose formation as you've had to scatter. So then you've got to reform, otherwise you're going to take negatives on your bombing run. There's a lot of cool stuff, but the resolution is very simple. You've got the combat attack values here, and your B-17s have a not very good one, especially if they've got no modifiers. Sometimes you've got those negatives from the green crew, so it can get pretty hairy if you get into things. So as you can down here, I got a couple damaged ones. This was my tail end. I didn't actually have a tail element because we only took 9 planes, but these guys took a lot of hammering from flak and from enemy fighters. And you can see the values start to get pretty hairy. This was a green crew with a -1 attack value, and they just have no kind of advantage or maneuverability of any sort. This was really cool. The combats are simple, they resolve quickly, they're not overdone. That's what I want in a game like this. I want it to be fast-paced, but still have some meaning, and that's what I get from this. I have a blast playing this. I love the escorts are more than just, did I fend them off? That's fine, but there's more of a game here for that. I roll a die, and this is how many are being aggressive. I can also optionally commit more of them, and then it's who do you assign to whom? Do I put my best guy against their best guy in an attempt to even the odds? Or do I put my best guy on one of their weaker guys to definitely kill him, knowing that their best guy will most likely get through and start wreaking havoc? Some really cool stuff with the combat that's not just totally random. There's some really, really good decision making to have to do here. Yeah, there's some rolling on a random events table, but the combat is not just randomly this thing happens to you. You have a chance to really defend yourself more than just rolling a d6. There's a couple of layers of defense there that you can put out. And that, it combined with this gives me a very different feeling from something like B-17 Queen of the Skies. Now, B-17 Queen of the Skies is fantastic. It tells a fantastic story. It's one of those great narrative games. This has a good story in it too. I have a fun time playing this. Again, I'm a sucker for Air Force games, and I love this. This to me tells a great story, but it's a squadron. It's just a different level. It's not that interpersonal relationships where one of your crew member dies and it's really sad. It's your whole squadron. Oh my gosh, that whole plane went down. That's awful. You know, but just a different level. It's just kind of taken a step back. But the combat in here is really cool, and there's a lot more decision making to be done. And that's something I really value in a game like this. So, I mean, that's a lot of what the game is. You know, sometimes you'll pull these Lady Luck tokens if an event tells you to, which gives you these cool bonuses. This is something I'm always a big fan of, right? So you've got covering arcs. You can add to the DRM of a bomb air combat attack rolls. You can ignore damage or a reduction result. You know, Wing and a Prayer, that's what the game's named after. But there's a bunch of these that you can pick up. And these cool little just extra tokens and events and stuff, that's something that you have on a lot of games like this. Silent Victory's got a bunch of those, which I have really fun time playing. And it's just the tiny little extra bits that add an extra layer of story to that one mission that you flew. So it's not just move, 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 shoot, 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 fight, fight, fight. You know, it's the little nuances like that that come into play that make this a fun story of a game. So that's we're going to wrap up. That's kind of a Wing and a Prayer. There's a lot of cool stuff in here. So let's come back for some final thoughts. That was basically a Wing and a Prayer. Like, as you can see, it's not overly complex. And that's what I like. The rule book is actually really, really good. I had a great time reading this. Large print, very simple to get through. I mean, really, you go through a few pages of rules, and you can just open it and play. Like, you can play as you read, and it's really simple. There's not quick to learn, tells a fun story, and to me, the game rewards doing a campaign. The nice thing with that is you don't have to commit to like 25 sessions of this. You can do the 5 mission campaign. It's very short. Playing a mission, if you know what you're doing, especially in the early war where some of the targets are really close by, the missions go really quickly. You know, you can get through them, and it's really nothing serious to worry about. You can do it fairly simply, and this is so you could get through a 5 mission campaign. And I mean, you could do that in probably 2 hours. You really could. There's not too much upkeep and things, bookkeeping in between, and that's what I want. That's what I want, and you know, not every game has to be a monster game. A lot of the solitaire games, it's like, okay, I've got an hour, I'll bash out a couple missions, have a blast, and that's it. You don't have to sit down for 4 hours and play a game. You can do that with this, and you won't be bored doing it. But you don't have to. And again, the versatility with this game, it can play as long or as short as you want it to. You know, you can do, there's a bunch of extra rules that you can tag on to make it maybe more realistic or a bit harder, you know, because there's more adverse things that can happen to you. But there's a lot of stuff to enjoy here. I would highly recommend this game. You know, if you don't have things like B-17 Leader or Target for Today, check this out. And if you do have those games, I would also recommend this because it's a different spin on it. It's not too samey for me. And I had a blast playing this. This is a great title from Lock and Load Publishing, who put out some really great games. This is one for me. I dig the artwork, I dig the theme, it's close to home for me, and this gets a big thumbs up for me. So I appreciate you watching. This has been a Wing and a Prayer, for me a solitaire game from Lock and Load Publishing, and I've been Alexander from theplayersaid.com.